Hello, my name is Lunda Asmani, and I'm the Chief Financial Officer for Nora Public Schools. Thank you for joining me today in providing a brief overview of the 2025-2026 budget, the upcoming school year. We're really excited that you're able to join us, and we look forward to receiving your valuable input in this process. I'd like to briefly kind of just talk about our budget process and the cycle. The process typically begins in October, where we build our pro forma budgets. This is our initial baseline, basically saying if we were to continue to do the same things we're doing this year with the same number of people, the same amount of resources, what would it cost? So we put that budget together around October. We then get this information out to our departments and ask them to start making their budget requests for the upcoming school year, taking into account any programmatic changes that are necessary the upcoming year, if there have been changes in curriculum and those types of things. So those are accounted for in the request of the department. During the month of December and January, the superintendent, meeting with all leaders of the schools within the district, put together what is called the recommended budget of the superintendent. That budget is then forwarded to the Board of Education that approves a tentative approved budget during the month of January. That budget is then submitted to our partners over at the city and becomes part of the overall citywide budget review process. During the month of March and April, we then build what is called our student-based budgets. At this point, we work directly with our school principals and leaders in our buildings, together with all the support systems that work together to make the education process. So this includes transportation services, this includes curriculum services, and all of those needs that need to be met at the schools. So we put together our student-based budgets. We look at current enrollment, we look at the demographics of our students, the needs of our students. And with that student-based budget, we then put together a budget that we feel meets the needs of our students for the year. By this time, the city has concluded their budget process. They have determined the appropriation for the Board of Education. And therefore, what we do at this point is to reconcile those two numbers. Typically, the request of the Board of Education doesn't always match the appropriation from the city. And at this point, we have to do reconciliation, making adjustments within the Board of Education budget so that the budget ties to the appropriation for the Board of Education by the city. And this process happens in June, and we send a final approved budget to the Board of Education for approval. And that is, in essence, how we begin the budget year each year. There are a number of opportunities for the public to engage in this process, some of which have already begun. On September 23rd, there was a public hearing on the citywide operating and capital budget. It was not only the Board of Education budget, but the entire city budget, and all of the city departments were part of this process. On October 10th, the Board of Education held our first community town hall where we received some valuable input from family members, members of the community. We also had members of the Common Council in attendance as well. On November 20th will be a second town hall meeting where we will again continue to receive input from the public and from members of our community in terms of understanding what are their priorities for the school districts and for funding the education of our children. In December, the Board of Education will hold a workshop. The Common Council and members of the Board of Estimates and Taxation are invited to this Common Council. And again, this will be an opportunity for all of these members, including the public, to get a better understanding of what the budget actually is that will be submitted to the city. Our hope is that the budget that is proposed in December takes into account many of the valuable feedback and input we would have received up until this point from the public. In January, the Board of Education and the Common Council Finance Committees will meet jointly to review the Board of Education budget. This, again, will be an opportunity for members of the public to share their concerns, their priorities, and what they feel the city and the board should do in terms of providing adequate resources for our students within the district. In February, the Common Council Finance and Claims Committee will hold a public hearing on the budget, not just the Board of Education budget, but the citywide budget. And again, this is another opportunity for members of the public to provide input into the budget. In March, The Board of Estimates and Taxation will also hold a public hearing gathering input from the public on the operating budget of the city. In April, Committee of the Common Council will meet to review the capital budget requests. And in June, as I mentioned earlier, the Board of Education will reconcile the request and ensure that it matches the appropriation from the city for the upcoming school year. And we hope to have this achieved on Wednesday, June 4th, where we formally adopt the budget for that following year. As we go through this budget process, it is also important for us to share some achievement that we have to celebrate with you. Among them is our graduation rate for the class of 2023 rose to 91.6% from 91.1% in 2022, with multilingual learners showing the greatest improvement. Our Future Ready programs, which include Twilight and the Virtual Academy, serve about 100 students. These are students who are not able to complete their high school education through the traditional route through a variety of circumstances, but these programs offer these students an opportunity to do project-based learning and to maintain their goal of having a graduation from the high school through a GED or through a high school diploma. This again positively impacts our graduation rates here in the district. Norwalk, for the 5th consecutive year, has been named as a best community for music education by the National Association of Music and Merchants. And again, this is a welcome news, and to be recognized is such an honor, but it also shows that the district provides a holistic approach to education and educating our students. When you compare Norwalk Public Schools with other city schools within the state, and these are cities with population over 70,000, you will see that Norwalk ranks high amongst our peers. In terms of English language arts, our district performance index, Norwalk ranked first in all of the city schools in the state for 2024. Our math district performance index, again, Norwalk ranked first in all city schools in the state. And our science district performance index, again, Norwalk ranked first based on all city schools within the district. Again, we still are below the state average, and we realize that we have opportunities for growth. But again, this is still a welcome achievement for our students in the district. But we still realize that we have ways to go. But we share this with you just so that you have some context in terms of how Norwalk has been performing. In terms of percent of targets achieved, this is a measure that shows the growth of the student. We start measuring them in grade 4 and saying where should this student be by the time they're in grade 8. And so we measure the percentage with which they're able to achieve that target. And again, if you look at 2024, for English language arts and for math, Norwalk Public Schools continues to rank top of all city schools, with work still to go. Other successes that we're celebrating this year is we were fortunate to receive grants for our air conditioning in our schools. The State Department of Administrative Services awarded Norwalk $21.5 million in grant funding. This funding, in addition to the $14.4 million that the city provided to the district, combined for a total of $36 million in investments in our public schools here in Norwalk. So we are excited that our schools will have new air conditioning. This is both exciting news for our students and exciting news for our teachers and paraeducators and our principals and all the leaders that work in our schools, ensuring that everyone that is working in that building has a nice and adequate place to work in. Norwalk is also in the process of building 2 schools currently. Our Norwalk High P-Tech School, at a cost of $239 million, we received $191 million from the state to build this facility. We are also building in South Norwalk the first neighborhood school in over 40 years. The school is a total cost of $76 million, with about $39 million received in grants from the state. We're excited about this because for the first time in many years, Norwalk has been able to receive a higher reimbursement rate from the state. These schools would typically receive anywhere between 20 and 30% reimbursement. However, the Norwalk High P-Tech School is receiving an 80% reimbursement rate, while the South Norwalk School is receiving 60% reimbursement rate from the state, allowing us to keep the cost and burden on the taxpayers of Norwalk as low as possible while getting high quality schools in our district. In terms of our overall budget, for fiscal year 24-25, the year that we're in, our total budget that was approved by the city was $233 million. We were fortunate through additional funding from the federal government that flowed through the state. The city was able to provide the Board of Education an additional $1.8 million for a combined support for our schools of $235 million to offset the cost of providing services and educating our students. This was also true for the last year, fiscal year 23-24, where the city, after the initial appropriation of $226 million, was able to fund an additional $2.5 million through grant funds to the school district for a combined local support of $229 million for the school district. Our school community continues to grow, but we also realize and recognize that we do have needs beyond and above needs of other school districts in the state. The chart on the left shows our multilingual learners rate and our count. You'll see that since 2017 and 2018, we have seen a steady increase of students, ranging from 2017-18 at just over 1,600 students. Currently, we're over 2,600 students who are multilingual learners. If you look at the blue line that goes with that graph, that shows the rate of increase within our district, the percentage of our students that are multilingual learners. The green line on this shows the state average. So you will notice that our blue line shows that Norwalk has a proportionately higher rate of multilingual learners compared to the state. The chart on my right shows our special education students within our district. Again, you can see that from 2017-18 to 23-24, we have seen an increase, which are those bars that you see on this slide. The blue line represents our rate of growth within the district. And you also see that as a percentage of our students, we have seen a growth in the number of students that require specialized services. The green line shows the same information at the state level. This chart shows that we are actually below the state level in terms of the percentages of our students that do require specialized needs to achieve their learning outcomes. Our Norwalk Public Schools is 85 to 90% staff driven. Those account for the majority of our cost. So in looking, where do these people work and where do these people spend most of their times, you will see that most of our staff members are in elementary schools, which is that very far bar on the left, both for positions that are funded through local funds and for positions that are funded through grants. You can see that the high schools and the middle schools follow next. What this chart shows you is that 92 to 93% of all of our staff in Norwalk Public Schools work directly in the schools. As you also know, that we do have some additional supports that are centrally budgeted that provide support for our schools. Things like transportation, things like technology services, things like communications, our nurses. So all of these individuals provide additional support to our students, but the majority of the staff that work in our public schools work in our high schools, elementary schools, and our middle schools. In terms of where are we with the budget, so this kind of shows you the growth of our budget over the past couple of years. You'll see that we went from 5%, 4.5% in fiscal year 23, 4% in fiscal year 24, and 3% in fiscal year 25. The two percentages that are in red, I shared earlier that the city was able to provide some additional funding to the district, which allowed our funding to increase from that original 4% to 5.1% in fiscal year 24, and from 3% in fiscal year 25 to 3.8% in fiscal year 24. What are some of the things we're looking at for this budget year to address? Obviously, we were fortunate to receive some supplemental funding from the city by way of federal grants. We know that those grants are going away. And what we have to do this year is to figure out how do we continue to provide the same level of service with that funding going away. Our special education had continued to see an increase in terms of provider rates, although we are also identifying more students that require specialized services. We have a number of in-house programs that we are providing that support these students, but the cost to provide these services for those students that do go out of district has been increasing. Finding teachers that have special education certificates has also been a challenge for the district. So this is an area that we are closely monitoring. We are monitoring additional funding from the state. We were fortunate last year to receive an additional $1.2 million in funding. We are hopeful that this funding continues this year. However, if it does not, this will pose a challenge for us in terms of determining how can we adequately support our students. We are also looking at pathways, providing opportunities for students that do not go to college, but providing opportunities for them to earn a living by having certifications in things like HVAC or HVAC pathways. But we also recognize that we do have some challenges retaining and recruiting teachers. Neighboring districts are providing signing bonuses and providing stipends, especially for these high needs areas or hard to staff areas. And in order for us to be competitive, Norwalk Public Schools also has to take this into consideration in terms of how we move forward. Again, thank you again for listening to me. We look forward to your valuable input. Please give us a call, send us emails, but please take the opportunity to participate in all of the opportunities that are coming towards for future engagement. Thank you for your time, and I hope you have a great day, a great evening, a great afternoon. Thank you.